During Ann Bancroft's first cancer treatment, which consisted of two surgeries, chemotherapy, and radiation, she reached a point of being too weak to even lift a light wastebasket or to walk further than a few yards. She was bald, her skin looked gray, she smelled like chemicals, and her mouth tasted like metal. It felt as if her life was draining away, and could not imagine a time when she'd look and feel healthy again.
Have you ever felt like giving up, quitting, throwing in the towel? Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope featuring Carol Graham. She's an author, health coach, and motivational speaker. Backed into a corner multiple times in her life, Carol shares with you stories on how she overcame some of the toughest obstacles a person can go through in life, but refused to give up hope. Rather than admit defeat, an opportunity was presented, and it involves each and every one of you. Carol will feature spectacular guests who will share their messages of hope, encouragement, and their inspiration to prove why life's adversities only make you stronger. And now, welcoming the host of the show, here's Carol Graham.
Ann Bancroft is a 71-year-old two-time breast cancer survivor. Her debut novel, Almost Family, was recently published. Ann began writing fiction after a career in journalism and communications, and after cancer prompted her to retire from a demanding full-time job. She's been a volunteer mentor to dozens of cancer patients. Many of you will relate to her story, and everyone will be encouraged by it. Thank you for joining us, Ann.
Thank you, Carol. It's great to be here.
So let us just dive right in and tell us your story, starting from wherever you want to.
Okay, well, I guess you started with my first diagnosis, which was in 2008. I spent most of that year in treatment. Um, Radiation was a month of radiation and then recovery. And then after, as you said, after that year, I reevaluated or evaluated where I was in life. And I really wanted to spend more time outdoors, more time being creative, and to get back in shape. So I retired early and did those things. I started taking some short story classes. I volunteered and spent a lot of time, hiking and I became in better shape than I had been before I was diagnosed with cancer because I wasn't sitting at a desk all day. Um, and that's it. I continued to work a little bit and little on projects that for my state job uh, as a consultant, basically. And then I started dabbling in fiction.
Tell us a
But
little bit about your experience. Let's back it up a bit and tell
okay,
us about what you went through, because this is what the audience is definitely going to relate to, as many are possibly going through that even now. So from the diagnosis, how did you respond? What did what was your thought process, and how did you cope? Those kind of things, if you would share that.
okay, yeah. Well, I was at work at my full time job when my doctor called, and I was in a meeting with one other person, and it just floored me because
Mm,
even though I had had a lump and it was biopsied and I was expecting some kind of result, it still doesn't sink in. Uh, you know, Even though I suspected probably it would be cancer, hearing it for real is a
mm-hmm.
whole other level of shock. Get you right in the gut, and So I immediately had to schedule surgery, and then they had to do a re-excision. I had a lumpectomy. Um, one of my low points was after the re-excision, which was essentially the same surgery twice, and you think, well, this can't be so bad. They're just going back in where they went before. Oh my gosh, that was so painful. Um, but got through that, and I had a follow-up with my surgeon, and she's looking at the reports, and she said, "Oh, well, I don't know what to do here 'cause, we're gonna have to go back in."
Oh no.
And I just thought, "This no, can't be happening." And I just went on a long walk aimlessly and got a call. She was looking at the wrong chart.
Oh
Not somebody
no.
else's not
Oh,
somebody else's chart, but my first one, where in fact I did need a re-excision. So, oh my gosh. So stuff like that happens. And instead, I started chemotherapy, um, which was, you know, as expected. I wasn't as sick as I thought I might be. I was day after each treatment. I was kind of jacked up because they give you steroids. So after
mm,
the first treatment, I thought, "Oh, this isn't bad at all." And in fact, I walked all the way to Midtown, which is a couple of miles from my house, to go get my hair cut off, get a pixie because I knew I was going to lose it.
right.
Only after I got the haircut, I thought, what was I thinking? I can't walk home. I got a ride. But I realized that was the the drill. The day after I felt
Hmm.
fine, and then it was crash time for a few days, and each treatment got a little worse. Add a day of feeling really crappy until that um, till the end. It was it was pretty nasty. Um, that wastebasket incident happened around then. Um, and then, radiation on top of that was just
Mm,
it it was 33 treatments. So you go in, and
wow.
I say it's like lying on a table and waiting for the basketball buzzer to ring. It's that fast. They strap you in, and then you go home. But
Oh
each
my
time it
goodness,
makes
I
you,
didn't realize that. Wow.
yeah. At least for the radiation I had, it's very targeted. They have you all tattooed up to show exactly where to place the beam, but it's a short burst blast, but every single day, and 33 of them. Um, and you get burned. It's radiation. So
Was it
uh,
always in the same place?
yes, yeah. So it's pretty tough. I remember seeing a woman in the dressing room just sobbing because she was so burned. And I thought, oh my God, um, you just get through it. It's like a really bad
Mm,
sunburn. You
right.
put aloe on it, and not the store-bought kind, because that has a little alcohol in it, which is just so not good for a sunburn. you know.
Right.
Um, um, in any case, I got my strength back. I exercised a lot. They say it's really important to exercise as much as possible during treatment. So I would, you know, at least walk around the block a few times. And, toward the end, I getting to the end of the block was about as much as I could do. But yeah, um, I made it. And then about a year after that is when I started with the UC Davis Breast Cancer Mentor Program.
Now, is that available
It,
to everybody or?
it was, as I didn't go there for my treatment, I went to a different hospital. So it was available to all the patients there. Um, and I didn't really have a support group, or,
Mm,
there was a nurse navigator who was wonderful. And I had lots of support from family and friends. So I didn't feel the lack of it. But
Right, right.
after having gone through it, I thought, well, this is something I can do because look, I
Hmm.
made it through. Um, and it was a powerful experience for me too. Um, to be to stand there being in shape, my hair had grown
Hmm.
back,
Hmm.
and feeling strong and powerful again, um, with women who were just been diagnosed and were terrified and were
Hmm.
going to be going through. And so I went to chemo with them and wig shopping and
Oh my
out to
goodness.
coffee, and we, deciphered their pathology reports and whatever was needed. And there are various levels. Some people just wanted a phone call every once in a while, and a couple I became pretty close to and remain close to, because it's the kind of experience that nobody
Hmm.
gets it unless they've been through it, really. And
Right.
I thought, the best thing I had going for me was just being able to stand there and be healthy. Aside from the knowledge I had, I'll
Right.
just back up a little bit, and say that both of my parents died of cancer. My best friend died of cancer, not breast. My first boss, two old boyfriend. I mean, I had lots and lots of cancers and
Hmm.
experience with it.
Hmm.
So I almost thought, well, I should do this because it doesn't freak me out as much as it might. Um, I knew that because I had stage one, even though it was aggressive, and that's why I needed chemo, I knew I would be okay. Actually, that's not true. I kind of thought that it would come back after a couple of years because at that time, uh, the thinking was it was most likely to come back within 5 years.
How long ago was that?
That was 2008.
Okay.
And um, so I really put myself through what a lot of cancer patients do, I think, which is um, every time you get a scan, you're pretty sure that it's going to show something. Every time you have a cough, you think it's gone to your lungs. Every time you have a headache, you think it's gone to your brain. All the places that breast cancer can go. I had symptoms at one time or another that turned out to be nothing. And I have to say how much I love my oncologist because I grew up in the kind of house that my father was an army doctor. Okay, so if if you didn't have bones sticking out of your skin, there's no point in going to the doctor, kind of thing. As a we're the stoic family here, so don't complain, and it's probably all in your head.
Right.
Was
Right.
my thinking. On the other hand, when you have cancer, it does go to your head, and there's no brushing. You can't just shove it under. At least I couldn't. It it remains, top of mind or close to top of mind for really almost a couple of years. And once I realized I went through all the whole symptoms, and my oncologist I would say, well, it's probably nothing. It's probably just in my head, but I have this cough that won't go away. And she'll say, you know, that's not your job to figure out if it's nothing. That's your job is to report to me,
Right.
and I'll tell you if it's something. And I so loved her for giving me permission that, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
given my background. So we, went through all of that. And after 2 years, I stopped thinking about it, hardly at most of the time. And then I started the mentoring. I guess it had been almost 2 years. Let's see. Then I started writing. I started writing fiction, which was entirely new, uh, exercise for me, a new kind of creativity because I had been a journalist, and you're not allowed to make things up when you're a journalist. So this was a challenge, and it was fun. I'll just say that 13 years later, not 2 or 5, but 13 years later, I went in for a routine mammogram. And by that time, I really, it didn't freak me out at all. I didn't expect, I didn't have
Hmm.
any
Hmm.
pre scan big anxiety because I had been so healthy. I was in great shape. And lo and behold, there was a tumor in there, same place,
Same
same area.
place. Wow.
Hmm. But it was a recurrent, it was a different kind of a different personality or whatever, different hormonal makeup. And so then I had to have a mastectomy. And you can't do radiation twice. Um, but I did the same chemo regimen the second time.
And how did that affect you emotionally?
You know, it's kind of interesting because it was probably because I'm older. Um, I just and I had been through it. I knew I'd get through it, and I mean, I certainly wasn't looking forward to it, and I was a little afraid that it would take more out of me, having been the second round. But I don't know. It felt easier. I was physically stronger because I was in fact in better shape. I
Right,
exercised a
right.
lot, and as a result of being a regular exerciser and outdoorsy kind of person, I think that helped me get through the chemo better than I had the first time.
Would you do it the
So,
same way again?
um, you mean
Just
the same treatment?
yeah, the whole thing, right.
I didn't feel like I had much choice. I mean, I guess I could have refused chemo, but it's good I didn't because my odds the second time went because after recurrence,
Hmm.
your odds go down. Um, it it became a little more imperative. I think that I do have chemo. At first, it was kind of a toss up, but I'm glad I did it. I would, yeah, I would do it again. Um,
And how do
um,
when you're supporting others, um, what does that entail, basically?
well, mostly listening. I can share my own experience. I can, laugh and,
Mhm.
with them, and um, as I say, go wig shopping, which is kind of fun. I just went through this yesterday with a dear friend who has a different kind of cancer, but going through the headgear pile. um, and again, I feel like I'm not in a position to be a mentor now because people don't want to hear it can come back,
All good
if they're
point.
going through it the
Yeah.
first time. Um, I could be a mentor certainly to someone who's had a recurrence and is afraid and who just wants somebody to share that with.
Of course. Of course.
But I was disappointed because I thought, well, the best thing I had going for me, I don't have anymore, you know, because I could say, well, I went through it and I'm done and I'm cancer free and it's all good. But cancer there's no cure for cancer and it does come back. So,
And when was the
um,
second time? What was the year?
so the second time was, oh, it's also during the pandemic. It was
Mm.
2021.
Oh, wow.
Um, so that added a little wrinkle. On the other hand, because it was a pandemic, it wasn't a bad time to hunker down and finish my book, get finished revisions and not much else going on. I didn't feel, like,
Right.
oh, I'm
No
stuck here.
pressure.
Poor me,
Hmm.
poor me. Everybody else is going out to parties, and
Right.
I'm. um, so there wasn't any of that. It was just kind of a relaxing time, to tell you the truth.
Well, you probably
Um,
needed that time of rest
yeah,
too.
yeah.
And what kind of coping skills did you have or that you could share maybe that would help somebody else?
I would say um, exercise for sure, as much as we possibly can, because it really just does help you physically and mentally. Um, gets the endorphins going, even if it's just walking up and down the stairs, which I did quite a bit during the pandemic because I didn't want to be in an elevator and I didn't want to be
Hmm. Hmm.
around, people. If you're a person of faith, certainly faith helps. Prayer or ritual or meditation, just connecting with your spiritual self side um, is, it'll calm you
Mhm.
down and
Mhm.
keep serenity in your life and keep worries at bay. And remembering that I, having had the first experience of spending really a couple of years imagining the worst, imagining
Right. Good
that,
point. Mhm.
gosh, I've only got a couple of years here and I better get my act together because, you know, I only have a couple of years. I really honestly believe that, even though the statistics didn't even say that. But, I looked at the bad ones. And I think in a way that was a way of, if you think the worst, then it won't happen. Magical thinking kind of.
So how did you counteract the fear?
Some of it was just a matter of taking of time passing. I think that's
Okay.
true with
Okay.
almost
Mhm.
any trauma that, you more time passes and it's, you've made it. You've made it through. And I think I learned to detach from that, and have that not be the center, or have cancer not be the thing that identified me. Um, when you're first diagnosed, there's just no way around it. It's like cancer is the wallpaper. It's bouncing around in your head all the time. And so to get from there to where you're not thinking about it it's tough, but it does just simply take time, I think. But also some of those, meditation, helping others, really, that's
That's
that's true.
huge.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
um, so and I worked on a hotline with a local breast cancer organization. So being there for other people and you know sharing your experience and your hope and your um, uh, that helped. And doing things I like. I love to cook. I love to read. I love to, you know, hike, and all of those things helped. Um, the second time I went through it, I got in the habit, or it just happened, to arrange my chemo sessions before, right before a getaway, or ugh, that's not true. The day before chemo, I would do something outdoors, um, like go on a strenuous hike. Because I'd already, you feel better right before you get zapped again.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think, and then you have 3 weeks in between. The first week is lousy and the second week is semi lousy. But that couple of days right before you have to go in again, you're feeling pretty good. So um, as it happened, one time I was in Colorado with some girlfriends. It was that little short window when we thought COVID was over before Omicron hit. And I met some girlfriends from high school, met them in Colorado, and they said, "You're a mountain goat." I was into this hike because I didn't have to go back. I went back to chemo the next, you know, 2 days later, and that's when my hair started falling out. So it was my first. It was going to be my second chemo, and I thought, well, that kind of worked out well. Having something fairly strenuous the day before,
Right.
I f- it kind of helped me get through. I think helped me.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I would any advice I would say, you may feel like just sitting on the couch. You feel depressed, and that's probably not the best thing to do. I had to force myself to get out sometimes, but I think it's
Worth
good for
it.
your head,
Worth it.
good for your head as well as good for your healing from the treatment. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate how you shared that because I think you touched on a lot of things a lot of thought process, a lot of things that people think about when they're going through this. And hearing someone, seeing someone who has survived and is now thriving is always an encouragement. So I sincerely appreciate you telling us your story in raw format. And we're just going to take a very short break. And when we come back, we want to
Okay.
talk about your book. So we'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, that was great. You answered my questions as you were speaking, and I'm sure you answered the audience's as well. And many people have already experienced this, but it's always good, as you know, as a mentor, to hear someone else's story and what they did and where they're at now. And the fact that you have survived twice can be an encouragement instead of, um, being concerning for
Fearful.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so now we're going to go into the second part. So we'll just pause for a moment and I'm going to ask you about your book. So just a moment.
Okay.
Carol Graham would like to show you the path from misery to miraculous triumph in her fast-paced memoir, Battered Hope. She relates her determination to succeed as someone who experienced one horrendous nightmare after another. Gang raped and left for dead, loss of a child, husband falsely imprisoned, and cancer. Nothing could break her tenacity or faith. No matter what you face, heartache, loss, suffering, or injustice, Carol will illustrate how she became a victor the same way you can. The secret is to never, ever give up hope. Order your copy at Amazon or batteredhope.blogspot.com.
Ann Bancroft has been sharing her experience regarding not only one time of surviving cancer, but being diagnosed and surviving the second time. She shared what she learned through those experiences and how she can help others going through theirs. But now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and Anne is going to share her book. I am intrigued by the title, so share with us your book, Almost Family.
Yes. It's almost family. Originally, it was titled The Oakland Mets. Um, and
Okay.
Mets was a private joke for metastases. But
Oh,
um, but that sounded too much like a baseball novel, and Almost Family really does capture what the book is. It's about um, finding people in life, in this case, toward the end of life, who become almost family and help one another.
beautiful.
Um, and I think this came from a couple of places in my life. It's not a memoir, uh, but it's a novel. The one of the genesis or one of the germs was when I had cancer. I was blessed with support from family and friends and casseroles and the whole, all the things that you hope people will do when you face a serious illness. People
Mhm.
did, and felt so fortunate for that. And I had a job, I had insurance, and my colleagues were wonderful. Um, it- uh, One thing I learned in fiction writing classes was start with what if. You know, what if this happened? What if the scenario was different? So I
Mhm.
thought, well, what if I didn't have any of that? What if a person was at the very lowest or one of the very lowest points in her life and didn't have the support and had estranged from family and all those things that I didn't have to go through. And so I developed this character who was pretty isolated and um, a real type A. She was divorced um, from her alcoholic husband and exhibits a lot of the characteristics that people who go through those relationships do. She became very controlling and trying to keep her family together. So,
Mhm.
so her relationship with her daughter, who she micromanaged all through school, was uh, fractured because the mother finally did leave the husband and had an affair with a married guy, inappropriate on every level. A guy who, from work she met across the country. It's the typical bad choice people, but so she's now estranged from her daughter, and what does she do? And then at that point, she gets diagnosed with cancer on top of it. She's a very snarky person, the last person who would think of herself as someone to go to a support group, because she's so, as I say, tightly wound and in charge and all of that. But now she's leveled because this relationship doesn't work out. Her daughter's not speaking to her, and she has got cancer, right? So she sucks it up and goes to the support group, and the support group is comically awful. I like to use dark humor, and because cancer is filled with humorous moments. I have to
Right, I
say,
know. I've heard that.
should have said that earlier. That in terms of getting through, that's definitely a coping skill. Look at the funny things that happen. But anyway, so I made this comically awful, this support group. It meets in the Nordstrom employee training room, and the facilitator is in over her head, and Liz, the protagonist, thinks that she wants out of there so bad, but she hits it off with two other patients. Very unlikely group to become friends. There's a gay man and a white woman who sings in a mostly black gospel choir and who's pretty religious, which Liz most certainly isn't. And yet they all see something in each other. And ultimately, they decide to ditch the group and form their own. And that's what they call themselves, the Oakland Mets. It's set in Oakland, California. And what they wind up doing, what they decide they want to do is, look, not sit around and talk about cancer all the time. We do have these stage 4 diagnoses. They all had metastases, but they wanted to live as much as they could while they still could, and go outdoors and have picnics and go listen to music and that kind of thing. That go on excursions. They went to Alcatraz. They did some things that they'd put off doing. But in the process, what they do is learn how to love in a different kind of way. And Liz, the protagonist, opens up to love for the first time really in her life. And they help each other resolve, each of them, as their secrets spill out during the course of the book, and they each have family issues to resolve, and they help each other do that. And so that's pretty much the story. I won't give away how they help each other or what those issues are, but I kind of fell in love with my characters.
Okay. Do you have any feedback that you could possibly share related?
Oh, well, I'll tell you my favorite blurb. This describes it, I think, beautifully, and I so appreciated this. This is from an author who was a writing teacher, Jodi Angel, and she says, "Almost Family is a book that comes right at the hard stuff with a whole lot of truth and even more humor." Ann Bancroft writes a beautiful story about love and the power of friendship to heal what the doctors can't.
Wow, that is really bang on. Very relatable.
So,
very relatable.
And another person said, "Who would have guessed that dancing on the edge could be so much fun?"
Oh, it's good.
And,
Good.
Yeah, Kirkus reviewed it. It said it's a story that follows a remarkable trajectory from loneliness and heartbreak to lasting love.
So, in summary, is there anything, word of encouragement or anything that you would like to share with the audience, and also where people can get in touch with you?
Oh, okay, yeah. My website is Ann Bancroft Author, all one word, annbancroftauthor.com. And I'm also Ann Bancroft author at Gmail for email. And the book is on Amazon and pretty much everywhere.
Right.
There's also an audiobook on Audible. But what I would say is writing this book was just such it wasn't always a joy because it's hard, really hard work to write a novel. This took me years. I started it not long after my first diagnosis. And for various reasons, I put it in the drawer for a couple of years. Then I took it out. It won an award. It got rejected. It blah, blah, blah. You know, the typical story of publishing. And so my debut novel came out when I'm 71 years old.
Oh, really?
So I want to tell people it's never too late.
Right.
And it's never too late, even if you've had cancer twice, or maybe especially if you've had cancer twice. You know, it's part of living fully while you live. You know, kind of big secret here, big reveal is that we all are going to die. You know, and cancer kind of focuses the mind and says, you know, okay, what do I want to do? Well, maybe I actually do want to try writing a novel, and so I did. And I guess I would say if people have creative impulses, to go ahead and pursue them, even if they've never done it before. If you know,
Excellent advice. Yes.
I particularly the creative impulses. You know, of course, traveling is always great, and all that bucket list stuff is great, but I kind of don't believe in bucket lists myself. In fact, after my first diagnosis, I decided I would do the anti-bucket list. In other words, what things do I not like to do that I'm not going to do anymore?
I love it. That's perfect. I can relate to that.
Yeah, you know, just say no to going to Costco is what was my kind of, or whatever it is.
Right.
You know.
Well, that was great. Anything else you want to share? That has been, I really appreciate your insight as well.
I can't really think. I think my book was published by She Writes Press, and it's a all women publishing book. So that's been very nice too.
Yes.
Collaboration between authors, and so I guess that's another thing I would say is, you know, nurture your friendships and nurture your relationships. That's something that's a gift that illness or trauma can give you, is going ahead and you know, finding strength in the people you love.
Finding strength in the people you love. That's beautiful. Thank you. And thank you so much, Ann, again, as I said, for sharing your story and for your words of encouragement. And we look forward to your book and the smiles that will come with that, I am sure, and the relatable topic as well. So thank you again for being on Never Ever Give Up Hope.
Thank you, Carol. Really appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Never Ever Give Up Hope, featuring Carol Graham. Did you know that most people succeed because they are determined to? Quitting was never an option. Carol loves your comments and will respond to each one. So please subscribe and review this podcast. A rating of 5 stars would be outstanding and appreciated. Remember, if you are still here, there is always hope.